This episode is sponsored by VIVARAYS, the only eyewear company that truly understands your biology. VIVARAYS are advanced blue light glasses designed with circadian biology in mind. Unlike typical blue blockers, they filter light in harmony with your body's natural rhythms, helping you sleep deeper, feel more energized, and protect your long-term health. We love companies that support biology-backed wellness, and VIVARAYS is leading the way. Use code QUANTUMHEALTHY at VIVARAYS.com to save 15% and support your sleep, focus, and natural energy the way nature intended. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. I'm Andeea, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissman, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Healthy podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Angela Jensen is here. Thank you for being here, Angela.
Thanks, Andeea. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who may not be familiar with what Angela does, she is certified. She's a certified naturopath, and she specializes in atopic dermatitis and eczema. And this is all through the Institute of Biological Medicine in Denmark. And she has a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Science from UQ in Australia. And she is also a certified Applied Quantum Biology Practitioner and also board certified in quantum biology through the American Naturopathic Medical Board in the USA. And she is a lawyer in life sciences and business ethics and gaining a decade of experience in-house at a Danish multinational pharmaceutical company. She's a mother of three and originally from Australia and currently resides in Denmark. Welcome, Angela, again. I want to ask you, so just with the bio I just read, you went from a lawyer to quantum biology practitioner. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's start with your story.
All right. Probably goes back to me being interested in science in high school in Australia. But some common sense was telling me I should probably also study law while I studied science at uni. And I did biomedical science as my specialization. And when I finished my law degree, I had actually done a year of exchange in Denmark and ended up returning because I fell in love with my husband, but also the country, and ended up building my legal career in Denmark. And if I have to remember all the timeline because it's over the last 20 years now, but I went and did a master's degree in Denmark. And in that, I wrote a thesis on pharmaceutical companies and the right to the highest attainable standard of health. So a bit of a human rights, but combined with health and pharmaceutical companies. And I worked at the time as a student, legal student in Novo Nordisk, the Danish company. So I was continuously having this red thread through my career of not just pure law, but there was always pharmaceutical, life science theme happening. And I remember as well that I bridged over to the pharmaceutical faculty at the Copenhagen University to take courses in clinical trials. And it was only for pharmacy students, but I had to learn about the regulation of clinical trials. And I ended up having a really fun and global career with Novo Nordisk for about 10 years, including a little bit of time in-house life sciences, not in-house, but in an actual law firm in Copenhagen as well.
Okay.
And I guess then it started to change after those 10 years because I had 3 children. And the first child, I returned back to work, but after our second child, I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. And then we had the third child. So it was just some years filled with children and settling into a countryside home that we bought and building up vegetable garden and just being at home with the children.
Yeah.
And then I guess in 2000, I was looking for some information about quantum biology that was structured, because I guess I should go back a little bit from here, is that our first child was born in 2015. And a little bit prior to that, my husband had been interested in blue blockers. And then after our child developed eczema, we started to look back into this world that was producing the blue blockers and what that was based on. And we'd actually visited doctors across 5 continents because of this global career, taking us to South Africa and Switzerland, and Denmark, Australia. We visited doctors in the Middle East as well, of course, because we lived in Dubai. And then finally we met actually Jack Cruz while we were in Mexico. We made sure to book a consultation with him at the beach. And
Best office in the world.
yeah, and this trip to Mexico was amazing for 2 reasons, because we both got to meet him and ask the questions that we'd been dying to ask. But secondly, because of the experience we had with seeing our child's eczema disappear during the time that we were there. So we learned a lot from that. We got a lot of hope that actually it's very environmental, and something in that environment was really healing for him. And we'd already been given a clue that it could be the magnetism combined with salty water, UV light, maybe a difference in humidity. There's many factors. It could have even been a little bit that we ate slightly different food, or the hotel rooms were cleaner than our house. Like, it could be many factors, and any eczema listener will identify with that problem-solving mindset where you are surveilling the environment and anything you've come into contact with for a causational link. Yeah, it's pretty tricky to be an eczema parent. And so your original question was, how did I get from attorney to where I am now? And this is all part of the story, because seeing that happen to your child who had been suffering and seeing them heal in front of your eyes will change your life. And it will make you wonder if you now are sitting on like a gold mine of information that other people should have access to learn about. We had a couple of experiences in Denmark where our son's eczema flared up again. And it's a bit of a compromise because we're living in a very high latitude, and you can't really negotiate with nature. Sometimes it's just less vitamin D. The magnetism is lower here. So we do have a bit of an uphill battle in some ways. But on the other hand, we are close to family and we have nature and a beautiful life anyway. So we experienced some re-flares here after returning from that amazing holiday. And we wanted to explain to the kindergarten that he was attending that the lighting that they changed was not helping, because it changed from very like yellow toned lighting to very crisp, very bright, high Kelvin white lighting. Imagine a cozy Danish hanging lamp then replaced with like hospital lighting on the ceiling. And so this change was very dramatic for us and very easy to see in our son getting eczema on the areas that were exposed to these lights from one day to the next when they changed them. And I tried to explain some of the science that I'd found about light activating the immune system. And I couldn't really change anything. And a lot of people were very nice, and I'm sure that is true, but we can't really change it now. And it's based on our purchasing agreements and all these things. So it just taught me to research and get back into that biomedical science and to create. I needed to also prove to myself that there was science that supported this kind of hypothesis that we were running with. And that was really enjoyable, but it's very alone. And I think that's when I got this idea that maybe there's a quantum biology course out there where I could communicate like with some other practitioners or people, parents who were learning about this and learn more. And that was when I found Meredith Oak running the Quantum Biology Collective, and Laura, that's when we met in the first cohort, and it was just meant to be. So crazy to think back. That's what I was looking for, and I found it. And someone's so brave as to put that out in the world. Yeah, so we did that course, and I guess I was still at a crossroads whether I would go back to legal work or continue down this path. But I think that it just made sense to me that working with health was a passion. That's what my piles of books all relate to. I felt like I'd grown away from the business ethics, legal work. So I think it's just about feeling where you are in life, and it's those micro decisions of which courses you take and who you network with. And then after I completed that, I set up a little eczema coaching business to help people learn about quantum biology. But I also learned that to help people holistically, I needed to almost backtrack. So a lot of people take the quantum biology as a layer on top of being a naturopath after they've become a naturopath or any other practitioner that goes through. But I did it in this opposite way where I took quantum biology first, and then I tried to choose an education that would allow me to continue to help the type of clients that I wanted. And I believe that I chose right because the naturopathy course in Denmark was brilliant at creating a holistic picture of eczema for me. And even though they don't teach on the quantum biology part, because I already had that first, I felt like I was looking at everything they taught through a quantum lens, whether it was herbalism or homeopathy, vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, hormones, melatonin. I saw it all through a quantum lens from the perspective of the mitochondria and their role in all of these systems in the body. So that was brilliant. If anyone could do that order, I would highly recommend it because you are preventing yourself seeing it to, if you don't see the quantum layer at the same time, I really feel like you're missing a puzzle piece.
Yeah, 100%. Sounds like you're following your passion now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Which
really
is very
interesting.
quant
Sorry?
which is very quantumly.
Yeah, following your passion.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to find out what lights you up.
Just a question on your so we want to delve into eczema. And there's so much could ask out of what you just said. But if we could just stick with the eczema and run with that for a bit. So you took this holiday and you linked it with magnetism. Love to go into more why you say that area was high in magnetism. And the other question I had was, had you gone on any other holidays that might have been south, for example, away from Scandinavia, and it didn't heal did you have that little test case where you could compare the two?
Yeah. The trip to Mexico, we landed in Cancun because Cancun is really close to the Chicxulub crater. So if you want, I can spell that out in a chat and you can add it to your notes. But the Chicxulub crater is a deepening in the ocean that is a crater. And because it's so deep, it allows the magnetism under the crust of the earth to penetrate further up to where we are. And so the theory is that you talk about it on your podcast with light, water, and magnetism being the three, what would you call it, pillars of health. And magnetism is really key to the functioning of our cells. Have you heard of that experiment where they removed people from the contact with the magnetism and they're in like a cage and they begin to deteriorate in all of their key?
Valerie Hunt was one of the.
Yeah, yeah. So we can't live without magnetism. It's so crucial, but we don't talk about it as a nutrient or a supplement or, yeah, it's very interesting. And I even think there's so much more to learn about magnetism. Since I did the podcast with Meredith, I've been contacted by a man that researches into magnetism from Melbourne.
Really?
And yeah, he's been sending me some information and it just all makes sense.
I listened to that podcast you did with Meredith on the QBC. Excellent for anybody listening to catch that one as well, because we may miss things here that were brought
Yeah.
up there. But you talked about how magnetism has been decreasing over time. And I know Dr. Jack Cruz has mentioned that as a big concern. And so, yeah, that's a concern about, is that going to degrade our health over time? And is there anything we can do about it other than putting our feet on the earth or traveling to the Yucatan, where is the highest in the world, or?
Yeah, it is the highest in the
It
world.
is.
And you can look up maps to see if your better holiday destination is higher than where you live. Because I started to investigate. My mum had also had eczema as a child, and she reported that some trips that they went on, she had an improvement. And I tried to reverse engineer if the destination also correlated, and it was slightly because it was Thailand, but nowhere near as strong magnetism as Cancun. But one of the ideas that we have is that we sleep on magneticos, and I mentioned that in Meredith's as well. But I have a feeling that there could be up and coming technology that will allow us to use magnets directly on lesions, like atopic dermatitis lesions. But some of the methods that I use, like the different modalities I use, we often see results without having to use magnets. So I don't know how necessary it will be, but I see that could be really useful. It dates back ages ago that they used to find these. It's not just a normal magnet with a like north and south. It's magnets that have a more circular flow. I'm not a magnet researcher.
Okay.
I'm more like a consumer of magnetic products.
Okay. Okay.
But people used to use like natural magnets and put it on a shoulder for pain relief. So there's a history of using magnets in medicine, but I think that it's just gone away a little bit. I believe there was a trend at some point in more recent history where there were magnets for sale, but because they were north-south magnets, what they promised could never be delivered. So it went out of fashion. But I think if it was the correct magnetism, the correct magnet, then it could be more promising. Have you heard of it in your practices?
I've heard of the Magnetico, and I've heard I would say it's like almost 10 years and 10 years ago, and before that was quite common. People were saying, "Oh, I'm trying magnetic therapy," but not in my practice. But I just wanted to identify the Magnetico. It's something that I haven't actually physically seen it. Does it go like you have a bed frame? Does it go on the bed frame and under the mattress? And
Yeah, under the mattress. There's
and your
some
mattress
rules
has
on
foam?
yeah, there's like some instructions on their manual or their website. I can't remember where we read it all, but it goes on top of the frame, on top of what you've got to support the normal mattress, and then you put your mattress on top. And we made sure to buy natural material mattress, like a latex rubber, rather than having springs because that could interact with the magnetism being metal. And then you also should not have your desk or any living where you live right next to the Magnetico because there's like a beneficial effect on top, but there's a negative effect beside
Okay. Oh,
because
okay.
of the way it curves downwards. And then there's some guidelines on how thick the mattress should be, so you're not too close and you're not too far away for optimal effect.
Yeah.
We've had Kelly Bento on the podcast twice, actually,
Yeah.
and not to talk about magnetism, more red light therapy and
Yeah.
biological dentistry or hygiene. And I remember I took the quantum master class with Carrie Bennett
Oh,
and
yeah.
Corey Gasvini for a year, and she was on it as well. That was
Mm.
like the year after we studied, because something you brought up in the Quantum Biology Collective podcast that I had forgotten is that we both sat in on the next cohort because it was
Yeah.
like we loved it so much, wanted to stay in the community, but also to hear everything twice and from a
Mm.
different perspective. I got so much more out of the second time I took it,
Yeah.
like you did.
I've
So anyway,
actually done it a third time, you could say, because when I studied for the certification with the American Naturopathic Board, I had to refresh everything so I could actually pass the exam with all the questions on redox and
right?
and exact nanometers of what the frequencies of different light colors are. So
Yeah.
I've done it 3 times now.
Oh my gosh. Well done, the two of you, right? Because you're both board certified.
Oh,
I haven't got around to it yet. It's on the list.
it was really valuable actually to go back and study as if for an exam.
Mhm.
How did you go, Andeea? Did you enjoy the exam?
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was great. And then I went and then I was there in Las Vegas not long ago and got my achievement award and I got to meet Kathleen in person. Yeah, it was awesome.
So how
Kathleen,
did they present it to you? Did you have a ceremony?
Yeah, we all went up on stage and then there was pictures, the whole 9 yards. Yep.
So you got to meet other quantum practitioners.
Yes, I
Wow.
did. Just a couple, yes. So I met Kathleen and then
Horstmeyer, right?
yeah, Kathleen Hortzmeyer and then also Tim Hammond. I got to meet in person. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What a great initiative to add that credibility to the certification that we already had.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I love having the credential for sure. And okay, so you asked about magnets. And
Yeah.
so the only I also know about the Magnetico. And then for emotion code therapy, emotions carry a frequency in the body and they say that the energy of an emotion can be about the size depending about of an orange or a grapefruit. So we have all these emotions stored and when you're letting go of the emotions, they will have a magnet in their hand. The one that I know that I have, it's called a Niken. I think it's a Niken magnet. So I don't know if it's like a north south magnet or North Pole magnet or what have you, but it's Nikken. And that magnet, then you put it over this meridian of the body, and then
Yeah.
that lets go of the emotions. So that helps carry it
Wow.
out of the body. And this modality is lovely because the person doesn't need to process the trauma or all of
Yeah.
the things. And it does, the modality uses muscle testing to speak to the subconscious mind. So you can do this virtually with people. And I absolutely love it. And there's nothing wrong with talk therapy. I have done a lot of talk therapy throughout my life, but it's really emotion code that allowed me to learn to let go and to really get the subconscious beliefs that I was holding, that
Yeah.
I'm literally making life decisions based on this belief system that's not
Yeah.
serving me. That can all get, and then you can work on, so that gets let go of, and then you replace it with a new belief. And it's a really lovely modality, and that modality uses magnets. It
I
uses
didn't even
magnetism.
know. Wow.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
Thanks for
Let's,
sharing. I've written it down so I can have a look later.
so my husband listens to this podcast every time he comes back from a trip to keep him awake because he flies internationally right now. And he would at this point say, Laura, you're touched on eczema. What is eczema? Can we go back to the basics? Tell us what is
Sure.
eczema and what's the typical conventional treatment for that? And maybe could you share some quantum biology modalities, the different aspects of quantum biology that you've tried?
Yeah.
So eczema is atopic dermatitis. It's an inflammation that's on the skin. It can be anywhere on the body, on the skin surface. It is characterized by red, dry, itchy skin, but it can also manifest as a more wet type of eczema, And there's many different subcategories that you could try to divide it up that could give clues as to perhaps finding out a root cause. And not to be confused with other skin infections like impetigo or a proper staph infection in a wound. So eczema is something different. The conventional route would be typically to start with, I'm not sure what they're doing now with under 2-year-olds, but you should be 2 or up to be prescribed corticosteroid creams. These are hydrocortisone, and they often have an initially positive effect because the inflammation is reduced and it's somehow hydrating on the upper layer of the skin. But unfortunately, it tends to thin the skin with prolonged usage. And there's a new diagnosis called topical steroid withdrawal that a lot of patients suffer from because it ends up actually worse. And that can take a lot of time to wean off of these strong creams, because often the story will be that after a while the creams don't work anymore and there's different percentages of strength. So you'll go back to the doctor and say it's not working anymore, and they'll say, are you using it all the time? Yes. Or if you say no, I'm having breaks, then they might say you'll just have to keep using it. And if it's still not working, they may increase that percentage of strength. Another possibility is immunosuppressant topical creams. And these also work, but often entail side effects with light sensitivity among the general risk of it suppressing your immune system. And then there's a more modern treatment, which goes in and interacts. It's like a bioactive that goes in and interacts with the cytokines that are involved in the inflammation process.
That's a drug then, that last
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the immunosuppressant, is that light sensitivity, is that just needing sunglasses outside, or is that, you mean when the light
You'll
in
have to protect yourself so that you're not exposed
to
to too much.
like UV light?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's not good. Okay, especially.
The last time I looked at that label is a while ago, so I would just add that I haven't read the label yesterday, so I'm not sure if things have
Okay.
changed. Yeah.
Oh, wow, you answered that really well. Thank you.
And then you asked what are the naturopathic options or the quantum?
Yeah, maybe before that.
Maybe I'll start with the naturopathic, because I consider that also a little bit
Oh,
mainstream,
yeah,
and then the quantum is like that
that's great.
twist that we have that we add. But the naturopathic, which I still believe in and use, is that we look for deficiencies. It could be zinc is very critical in the skin. And what we'll see in blood tests with eczema children or even teens, adults, will be that they're low in zinc. And there may be, you don't know the chicken and the egg, because it may have been there before that eczema flare, before the eczema developed. And then you ask, why? Was there a deficiency in the nutrition? Or could it be that the body is not absorbing the zinc? And then why is that? Is there a problem in the gut or enzymes? And then another would be that wounds in general, all the lesions that people will get with the eczema, consume a lot of zinc. So you need to be considering to top up the zinc so there's plenty to build the new skin. There's also other vitamins and minerals under the naturopathic umbrella. We'll also look at the gut microbiome, and that's something that I'm starting to partner with some testing companies so that we can identify the imbalances. So there's some specific bacteria that are very beneficial and very present in non-eczema people, but very lacking in eczema patients. So
Is that something like a bifido?
yeah, it's Lactobacillus rhamnosus. is
Rhamnosus.
one of them that we would look to increase.
Okay.
I attended a conference coincidentally yesterday in Copenhagen that was about the skin microbiome.
Mm.
And it's really not for naturopaths and definitely wasn't with quantum practitioners in mind. It's for biotech companies and generally pharmaceutical companies. So there was Jensen and a few biotech startups. It was a very interesting conference, and they had a specific focus on eczema, atopic dermatitis. And one of the speakers has developed a product that can be applied topically, and it actually includes Lactobacillus reuteri. And that is super fascinating. It's a refrigerated cosmetic product because they don't want to use all the preservatives and the other ingredients that aren't really meant for us. They're meant for just keeping the product having a long storage
Right.
life. But she's developed this amazing product that introduces a bacteria back into the skin microbiome that, again, is typically missing or too low. But something that I'm interested in, now I'll bridge it over to the quantum story, is how this microbiome, both our skin and our gut, are affected by our light environment. And so I did pose the question at the conference, and there were some clues that it's relevant, but they had not specifically researched this at the university or at the private company. But I wanted to ask, do the beneficial bacteria on the skin thrive better under UV light? And does UV light actually kill the non-beneficial microbiome? And they have looked into which ones are responding to UV light, but it's such an early science that it's not translated into trials or anything that gets published yet.
Jeff Leach, have you got any of his books or
No.
no? Do you know, have you heard of him, Jeff
No.
Leach? It's Leach. I'll dig out a
Okay.
book and bring it over in a second if I can find it quickly. He was one of those researchers in Africa. I'm going to guess that with the Hadza, where, yeah, you probably heard stories about where,
Yeah.
I don't know if he was in part of, I thought it was Dr. Zach Bush talks about it. Sorry, got a phone ring here, that it was an accident, and where they had these really well-meaning missionaries had given antibiotics that tasted, I don't know, it was an accident, that tasted really yummy and sugary and whatever. And what they found was it didn't affect their microbiomes in the end. The next day when they did further testing, I thought that was Jeff Leach that did the testing.
Yeah.
And so that in the end, Dr. Jack Cruz always has said, you can eat shit on a shingle if you're in the light environment.
I remember that.
Remember that? And
Yeah.
I think that's where the Hadza tribe were given all our modern day food that we know is affecting our gut microbiomes and reducing diversity, but we don't have our bellies in sunlight the way they do. And yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, that's why I keep researching and trying to find out more answers about these things, because I mean, eczema is so multifactorial. It's a bit of the gut microbiome, and it's a bit of the skin microbiome, and you have to think about treating all of these areas to really help.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the book.
There's just one of them, Honor Thy Symbionts. I haven't read it yet. It was where I got the idea for this was Heather Shepard. When I took her homeopathy course, we ended up with a retreat, and we ended up at her home and in New Mexico. It was incredible. 5 days with people like Heather Crimson and Vanessa Baldwin. They also have obviously a podcast, Popular Quantum Biology podcast. We'll give them a little commercial here. Yeah, the Quantum Health Connection, it's called. Anyways, I found myself glued to her bookshelf. I'm like, what does Heather Shepard read? And I took my phone and I took pictures, and I came home and I ordered some. It's one of the ones I haven't read yet, but I think it's definitely about that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. You've really met a lot of quantum people.
It was interesting in the airport in New Mexico when I arrived. Heather Crimson was there, and she was on our course, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was the first person I met in person. And this is coming out of COVID, right? Where we've
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
everything online. And I just looked at her and I gave her a hug and I said, Heather, you're real. Like
Yeah.
this, I think I started to cry to just think like of all the people we've met, and it's, oh my God, you people are real. You're not just on a screen.
Yeah.
I
I
know.
also am friends with a lady who went to the Confluence Festival,
Uh-huh.
and she said that Carrie Bennett and Sarah Kleiner were both there. And she told me, oh, she saw them meet each other for the first time. And I
Oh,
thought, is that for real? Because they seem, of course, they would have met each other. They're like friends. But this happens with the internet. It's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I met some people recently in person too, and yeah, I always end up crying while I'm hugging them. I'm like,
oh, that's
"Ah."
so beautiful.
But this exact point is actually guiding me at the moment with what to do with my naturopathy and quantum biology, because I know that there's a lot of eczema sufferers all around the world, and I do want to help them, but I'm really working hard at the moment at establishing myself in Denmark as well, so that I can meet people face to face and help people locally. I think that's really important as well, that probably our imprint at the end of our lives will be what we do with our closest people. And that's really important to me right now, that I get to meet people. And yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of closest people, somebody that Andeea knows is my son's girlfriend, Jamie. And Jamie, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but she just recently moved into a new location. And she was telling me about a week ago that she's got eczema on her scalp. And she has a history of this eczema as a child, later developed into asthma, and the eczema went away. And in homeopathy, like she remembers me saying this over and over, that in homeopathy, if we find the right constitutional remedy, we get excited when we see eczema come back for somebody that we're treating
Oh, yeah.
asthma,
Because then
and
it's like going back,
it's
a
going back.
reverse atopic march.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, what is the atopic? That's a new term to
March.
me. Atopic
Oh,
march.
okay. The
Yes. Could you
atopic
explain?
march is sadly a phenomenon that we see with eczema, that it can progress into asthma later in life, because asthma, you can imagine it marching from the skin down the airway into the lung surface as an atopic surface. I think that's how you're supposed to imagine the atopic march. And it's a reality that they see, where it just develops. And some people are also, we've talked about it in our shorter, much shorter than your homeopathy course, that if you suppress a lot with the corticosteroids, it might appear to go away on the skin, but you may be causing the body to have to use other excretion systems to deal with the toxins or this allergy, or the immune response may shift into the body's next available excretion system, which will be the lungs.
Brilliant. So back to Jamie.
Yeah.
She's moved to this place, and of course, I'm trying to give her advice. I immediately went to the one quantum modality that I did use. There's probably three that I've used, but I've had two eczema clients come to me, and I don't know if it was just luck, coincidence, but red light therapy helped. Now they both had minor, one was quite minor, but the other one, she'd been suffering a long time. Both did well with, one was the torch. She ended up buying the torch, Kelly
Yeah,
Bento's little, I have it
great.
somewhere on the shelf. And the other one, I used a Bioptron. It's an older unit that has all the colors plus infrared and red, no UV. And both, yeah, both had worked. So if we go back to your son, and this is where I want to tie in Jamie's situation, where she's moved, she's changed her environment. And so my thought was, oh gosh, what is the lighting in her room? I haven't gone over to see what is the non-native electromagnetic frequencies. These are some challenge there. If we went back, what's the name of your son that had eczema?
Harvey.
Harvey, that's right. So for the listeners, we both, Angela and I both had to present in order to graduate. It's something at the School of Institute of Applied Quantum Biology. And so we were the first cohort and we were nervous. So what
Yeah.
did we do? It was John Warner. The three of us were the ones in the
Yeah.
class that I don't know if we were more underconfident than other people, but we actually practiced in front of the group, we practiced our presentations. And I can remember I was like screenshotting slides because I wanted to go back and look at yours. So I pulled them out before this interview to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the picture of him with so red, his face when he had been in that daycare where they changed the lighting. Other than going to the magnetism and beautiful sunlight in Mexico, did you do red light therapy? Did you use sunlight? And did you mitigate blue light? There's three biggies in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about that?
You can probably guess that we did all those things. And yeah, we have slowly added on red light therapy, but it's harder with a child. So it's better for us to remove the blue light imbalance, play as much as we can outside, and then add, like I have now, because it's sunset, so I needed some light here. I've got my EMR Tech red light down on the floor here. And that's something that we would do in our house, is have red light combined with candle light. Now we've stopped using candles to some extent, like maybe halved the amount of candles, just to make sure we're not polluting our home with some of the what do you call it? The
Phthalates or
yeah. So
beeswax.
yeah, we also use beeswax. That's just slightly more expensive. So we've combined that with the red light, and we feel like it's a better light for the children to play a board game or whatever they want to do.
Okay.
And not as dangerous, because the candle lights are also like a flame that could be tipped over if they throw a balloon or a ball or something. So that's all factors to consider if you're a really young family, not to introduce some other risk or danger for your kids. But that's the red light aspect. We don't have lighting in the ceiling in our home because we knew this before we moved in. So that was really easy for us to just never install lights. And then we have a bathroom that doesn't have a window. So I've bought some block blue light. Is that the company? Or low blue light? Yeah.
Yeah, we had him on our
Oh,
podcast.
great.
Yeah.
I bought some bulbs from them that would fit into the lights in the bathrooms, because having the red light in there wasn't always so easy to
Your
find.
your lipstick and eyeliner can be all
Yeah. So you have to navigate what you're comfortable with and add layers. It's definitely been just a layering of what we do and finding out what works for us and trying. There's so many products now. There's always new products. So finding out what products there are. Like the EMR one is really good. I'm not affiliated with them, but we like it because it's fairly portable and bright enough that we can, they can't really play with Lego because it ends up being brown instead of purple or whatever they thought.
Yeah, that's a better example than the makeup, because even the three of us probably don't wear next to any makeup.
Yeah, and what was the other question you asked? Did we mitigate blue light?
Yeah, and so in the blue light, blue blockers, you didn't need them.
We have blue blockers, but we don't really use them at home. And we've tried with the children to have a set each for when we go on flights, but it's really only our oldest child who's willing to keep them on. The others, they're like, ooh, and then it's not really doing the point. But I know that they will seek it because they're used to a life without the intensity of those lights.
They're blue light sensitive.
Exactly. They'll be sensitive.
Yeah, hopefully not in a negative way, that
like
I hate to think that we've made them sensitive, but they're more able to feel what's good for their mitochondria.
Have they been to a movie theater?
Yeah. We also just participate in normal things, but it's more like the home is something that you can design for yourself.
I was just thinking it would be overstimulation, like a sensory stimulation for them to go to a movie. That's what maybe they would. I know for me, I need my blue blockers in a movie. It's too much in a movie theater. Yeah.
They haven't complained, and we don't go very often. We don't live near a city or anything, so it's maybe a once a year thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then they just love it, so they're not really thinking about that.
Back to Harvey. So is he your firstborn child?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
oldest? Okay. Something in your present, I'll go back to your presentation that I found fascinating. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you still think this way. That's why I want to ask. You talked to us about that your mom had eczema and you were interested in, or you had a hypothesis that there was like a transgenerational, like a skip almost, because you didn't have eczema as a
Yeah,
kid. And then you talked about your pregnancy. Could you tell us about your pregnancy with Harvey
yeah,
that might have been different from the others and they didn't get eczema,
yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they haven't developed it. Our daughter actually had some sort of histamine reaction, but we applied emollient creams, and I think that helped make sure her barrier stayed intact. But yeah, my mum tells us that she had eczema until she was late in her teens. Something we talked about on our holiday with her recently was that it went away when she moved into a girls' college in Brisbane, and she realized that she stopped eating or consuming any milk products. And milk products are something that seem to bother our son. So we have to navigate eating pretty much dairy free.
Even raw milk?
Yeah, that's the thing, is the raw milk that I can get here is not A2. And
Oh,
so I'm
okay.
in a bit of a dilemma about whether I should actually test that on him or not. And so where were we in our conversation? My hypothesis about epigenetic
Yes.
transgenerational inheritance. So there's research that shows that what the mother is exposed to in her life, because she has her eggs already from when she's born, will potentially transfer onto the, yeah, what would you call it? Like the genetics, the epigenetics of the baby. The light environment could very well be one of those environmental factors that are passed on. I don't fully understand how it works, but are papers that put this together, that the light and of the mother will determine the photosensitivity of the child.
Wow.
My pregnancy was, I thought I was super healthy because I was exercising and walking in the morning outside, exercising in a gym, swimming. And then I also realized that I was wearing foundation that had SPF in it. I was wearing sunglasses on my walk. I was wearing rubber-soled shoes on my walk. And then basically from being in an apartment on the 45th floor in Dubai, I would take the elevator down to the car park, get in my car, leave the windows up because it was already 35 degrees, which is hot in Fahrenheit. It's hot in Fahrenheit. And we drive to work, park in the basement, take the elevator up, work
Oh
all
my
day,
God.
go back home, work out in the indoor gym, maybe swim in the indoor pool, and then it's maybe go for a walk. So I was living a pretty much a chronically indoor lifestyle, even though I loved nature and would go to the beach. And we would have little routines of going to the beach. It was probably helping us survive. But you could say that I was in a nature deficit when I fell pregnant and during the pregnancy and during our son's, yeah, initial weeks of life. So that's
So
one of my hypotheses in general with eczema, is that it's a nature deficit. But having said that, I should also acknowledge that there's a lot of research into genetics with eczema, and there is the filigrein, the protein that helps build up a really strong barrier. It can be deficient in 30 to 40% of cases of eczema. So you can never really take away from the fact that it might be a little bit of nature deficit, but all the nature you can get won't change a genetic mutation that's causing a filigrein deficiency.
because that's DNA, not
Yeah,
mitochondrial, like nuclear
yeah,
DNA, not
yeah,
mitochondrial DNA that you could change.
yeah. Because
Oh,
for a long time, I've been a mum that wants to mimic what happened in Mexico, but it doesn't always work that easy because N equals one is something we say
I
in
know.
biology. Everybody's different, and I've stopped having expectations or ambitions for my son, for my clients, for myself, because it's not really fair to put an expectation that it could end up the way it ended up for that holiday in Mexico, because like I said before, we live in an area that is not the same as that.
I think for people listening, they're gonna be thinking, how long did it take for his eczema to clear up?
That's the thing I'm also trying to say, is that it cleared up within 2 days in Mexico.
Yeah.
He can still get flares if he is in an environment, like he goes on scout trips,
Yeah.
and sometimes they last for 9 days. And even though they're really supportive at navigating some of the food triggers, you cannot control that they had to sit on a fully lit train all night and he
Yep.
lost all his sleep for a night. And sleep is so important for the melatonin production. And then it's not a surprise for me that there will be a flare up after a trip like that. And then just, it's actually turning into a different role for me because I'm learning to coach my own child to manage his own issue. Yeah. So there's like a separating and a giving over the knowledge and the responsibility slowly, and letting him feel what it feels like to eat something that we've generally been avoiding, and just allow that to happen. And then reminding him to take his fish oil and go outside in the morning, because that's really important, as that's one of our really important routines. But he's going to be a teenager soon, and life will, yeah, I want to give him the reins now in a way, so
Yeah.
that he has some experience and can feel his body, what it can regulate and what is too much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a whole new journey for me. And it's also interesting with clients because I want to recommend, there's many things that we can do for eczema, but sometimes it's just one thing at a time to layer on the way we have, and to test out what works for that exact person or child's eczema,
Yeah.
because their immune system is unique. It could be reacting to different things. It could be a fairly new eczema, or it could be their whole life from the day they were born. So it's very different how we'd approach that.
Yeah. Like you say, I got lucky with my two with red light therapy, but I've only had two cases that I've worked with. So
Yeah.
the next one, it might not work at all. And maybe I should be focusing more on quantum nutrition,
Yeah.
which I was going to ask you. You touched on fish oil, but have you found DHA? I'm thinking you probably eat a lot of fish in Denmark, but
Yeah.
has that been something that you've prioritized with his diet?
Yeah.
Is higher DHA to,
Yeah, that's another issue that comes with your child growing up a little bit, how they want to consume what they tend. He doesn't really want to eat sardines. And so then I generally prefer the DHA as a capsule for him. Does that answer your question? Yeah,
just,
because I think something that we haven't talked about in this podcast yet is how important the mitochondria are for eczema. And
yes, oh, go
when
there.
you mention red light being effective for your clients, there's an explanation of why. It's because we're supporting the mitochondrial health, and this is so important for melatonin as well. And the water that the mitochondria create, this exclusion zone water. I know that some of the listeners, if they're interested in eczema because they have a baby, they might not know all of these quantum terms, but these organelles in our cells, the mitochondria, they produce water, and it's a different type of water that has a charge, and it can act like a filter for toxins and support your immune system. It can also create like a battery for energy. And I've linked all of this together with eczema, because when the mitochondria are functioning strongly, you're going to produce more of this water. which hydrates you from the inside. If you're having a dysfunctioning mitochondria or a weakened mitochondria because the environment is weakening it, then you're going to be dehydrated from the inside. And I think people can relate with eczema, with this red, dry, itchy skin, that we want to hydrate as naturally and as deeply as we possibly can. And that's why red light is important, because it's a mitochondria supportive modality, but blue light is going to decrease its efficiency.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up and explained it that way.
Yeah, and I also think it's relevant for the whole family. So often the focus will be on the child with the eczema, but at the end of the day, all the changes with, getting the morning sun, perhaps integrating some red light in your home and reducing the blue light, almost if you can, removing it, then you're going to experience benefits for all family members. And you never know, if the mother or father are suffering from something else, they might notice changes in their own health. So usually it's like even though some of the recommendations are a bit unusual, many of them are free actually, because it's like going outside in your bare feet, people feel good, and getting that morning sunrise. If you can wake up a little bit earlier and find that special place, whether you have to walk down the road a little bit, or I have to walk down a hill and past some trees so I can get like a visual on the sunshine. But it's really worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are coming to, it's close to time, so I wanted to make sure that we asked you our signature question, and we're going to put
Oh,
a twist on it for you. So, what does quantum healthy skin mean to you?
I think quantum healthy skin is skin that is supported with nature's signals. I think when I have this hypothesis that it's a nature deficit, I think quantum healthy skin, that it is skin that's nourished by sunshine, morning sun, and nature's signals in general.
Awesome. I know you have coined a term called skin freedom and just being free from, how do you describe that term?
It's based on the experience of being a mum with a child with eczema, because your whole life is impacted. You will spend time, you may learn that the detergent that you've been using has fragrance in it. So then you will be tied to the washing machine because you want to wash all that fragrance out before it comes into contact with your child. It could
Right.
be that you can't actually go to the beach that day because there's a flare and there's so many lesions that your child will scream because of the salt water coming into contact with their sores. That's the kind of freedom that I'm talking about. But it could also be that the list of foods or allergens or triggers is like growing longer and longer. And if you can actually make that list shorter, that's also freedom, because it adds to the stress of a family that they have to avoid more and more foods. And some of the categories of food chemicals that people are avoiding are so big and all encompassing that it doesn't leave many foods left. So if you're going to take on salicylates and amines as a trigger for eczema, it could give some relief, but at the full circle, it could leave you also having a nutritional deficit where you're not actually getting enough nutrients from a varied diet. That would be freedom for me, if you could not see it just as, okay, eczema is all about playing a game with finding triggers and then avoiding them, but rather digging deeper so that you can try to find the root cause of that. So often naturopaths will stop at, oh, I can't speak for a naturopath, maybe they don't stop here, but the education stops at, it's not the food, it's the sensitivity. So we got to find out why there's a sensitivity and treat that. And that could be using herbal extracts to regulate the liver and the gut, providing something that can smooth the gut lining to try to treat leaky gut. But then I'm interested in that extra layer of is there a root cause of that supposed root cause? Could it be the nature deficit? Could it be that we're just not getting enough UV light to regulate our gut microbiome? Could it be that our magnetism isn't strong enough? Is it because our mitochondria are not producing the water that we need to hydrate internally? So they're just some ideas for what skin freedom could be. If we address those things, then we could get some relief on the allergy front, and then that's freedom, because then you can go out and eat a little bit of everything without having to suffer for the following days. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you for taking the time to share that. And I know Laura has a thank you for you as well.
Yeah, Angela, thanks for coming on. We've been trying to get this interview for quite a long time, but we had to let you graduate and write a
Yeah.
number of exams.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you for that. Thank you really for today in this interview for explaining just the multifactorial multitude of triggers for eczema, but also, and that also then brings the multitude of possible modalities, that maybe untried modalities that lots of parents haven't even thought of, especially those quantum biology that I think you're in such a unique position to bring. Thank you, Harvey. Please tell him he's been through a rough go, and we're thankful he has you, because you've gone so far to research, and all, of course, with your background being a lawyer, biomedical, to really be the best eczema parent for him, and really to discover that in his case, it was very much environmental, that link between with blue light especially, and then of course the magnetism as well as a bit of a cure there. It started with Kelly Bento. She calls herself the Quantum Mom on Instagram, and we just want to invite you into the Quantum Mom category here.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple more here. Just for all the people, thank you that you're going to help, or with the knowledge that you have, and to give them the kids of the parents that you're probably going to work with, the skin freedom back, and just take the gold mine, as I love it, you called it that, the gold mine of information, and go out there and keep being an eczema paradigm shifter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm really touched by that, Laura. Thank you. I always try to see it as a gift. We had to suffer, but on the other side, we've learned so much about health, and you wouldn't be without it. It's been life-changing. And yeah, I'm really touched. Thank you so much for those words. Hope I get to meet you.
I'm starting to cry here.
Yeah, I know. It's big work that we're doing here. Thank you. And well done with your clients. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And I just hope that with this podcast, who else are we going to touch? Because now they're going to know, oh, I haven't thought about that. And now I have a resource.
Yeah.
She's called
Try
Angela
it.
Jensen. She has a website. So did we
Yes.
bring that out? We haven't asked that, have we? Your website.
I just have a website. It's my name, angelajensen.com. And you can have a look at what I'm offering and send me an email if you're interested in having a chat. I have discovery calls for free. So I'm happy to chat and give you as much information as I can in those calls, and go and try it. And if you need a detective work, then we can go down that route, because sometimes it really does require a full journal so that the program that I can write is tailored exactly to the child and the family, so that it matches their everyday life.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Angela, for being on the podcast today, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks, Andeea.
Thank you for sticking around at the end of this podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, VIVARAYS, who allows for us to get this information to you. They offer top-of-the-line blue blocking glasses, which, as we know, are critical for our health these days for blocking artificial light at night. Over 90% of our time is spent indoors under artificial lights, and this puts us all prone to circadian rhythm disruption. You can use the code QUANTUMHEALTHY for a discount. Link is in the show notes.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakistmanwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, Go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.